Welcome to the Intentional Way, where literally every moment is a step towards purposeful living. I'm Bryan Hatch, here to explore the power of intention with you. Learn from our guests who embody intentionality. I'm glad you're here with me. Let's get started. Welcome to another episode of The Intentional Way. I'm your host, Bryan Hatch. And as always, I'm excited to be here. The guests we bring to the show, I kind of get giddy inside in order to share them with you. And I'm so excited to hear your feedback once you hear our guest today. Our guest today is none other than Brett Gilliland. He has been a leader and sometimes even a behind-the-scenes leader of very large companies, in my opinion, from the small business aspect. He's been, eight-figure, even larger businesses. He's put together a lot of things around culture, around team, and around process and how to grow a business from startup phase all the way to eight figures. And I'm so proud of just the connection I have with this guy. I've been in awe of him kind of in the background for a few years. And then I got to actually get to know him a little bit. And I think even more highly of him than I did. And a guy that I think deserves all the credit that he humbly exudes. So Brett, thank you so much for coming today.
It's a thrill to be here, Bryan. You are very kind, too kind. But yeah, I'm excited to just spend some time with you. Let's be intentional. I love your podcast, by the way. It's great.
Well, I didn't mention Brett leads the Elite Entrepreneurs, a team that works with seven-figure business owners to help them grow past 10. And I think that's really impressive. So I meant to make mention of your actual business that you have really grown and taken care of. So I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that first.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, at Elite, you got it, right? Targeted those seven-figure business owners who they celebrate that $1 million mark in sales. And then it's like, oh, there's some new challenges, some next level things that keep them from growing to 10 million. And we love to teach that proven leadership system to them to help them grow to 10 million and beyond. It's totally fun.
Well, Brett, I want to start today maybe making you squirm a little bit. It's not something I don't typically do on this show at all, but because I think so highly of you and I think that you're just like, you walk around as a pretty humble guy, like you don't show off all the cool things and accolades you've actually made happen in this life. So I'd like to push you a little bit and tell us something that you're very proud of that maybe people wouldn't recognize you for.
Sure. This is going to be an obscure reference, and
Awesome.
You're going to wish you had. Could I withdraw the question, Your Honor? You're going to kind of wish you could strike it from the record. I think most of your listeners will have heard the name Jim Collins, unless they're younger. I think some of the younger people are like, Jim who? But anybody in business who's, I don't know, at least 30, 35, 40, they're going to know who Jim Collins is. And I had the privilege of going to his lab as part of a leadership team where you and I met. We at Infusionsoft back in the day. The leadership team there, 10 of us, went to Jim Collins, and we spent 2 half-day sessions there. That's not an accomplishment by any means, but we spent 2 half days there. And one thing led to another. Subsequently, Jim wrote a book called BE 2.0. His very first book was called Beyond Entrepreneurship, and he wrote it with his mentor, Bill Lazier. And in honor of Bill passed away. In honor of Bill, and after 20 years of experience, Jim said, I'm gonna write an update to Beyond Entrepreneurship in memory of Bill. So he wrote an update, called it BE 2.0. And this is a long story for a very insignificant mention. But I got a chance to review the manuscript or the draft of that book, give some feedback. And Jim was generous enough to put me in the acknowledgments with, 58 other people or something at the end of that book. And that just felt like a cool thing because I've always looked up to his work. I've always wanted to build great intentional, tying back to your podcast, great enduring companies in an intentional way. And so I've set out to do that. And so Jim's work has been very influential for me. And I was just honored that I would get a little mention in the back of his updated book.
That's awesome. Now, I'm going to have to ask the question, though, what was his acknowledgement for? Like, how did you assist him or help him in some way that he would put you in his book like that?
So he sent a draft of the rewrite, and he was just asking for some feedback. And so I read the draft, and I gave some feedback, and he at least I don't remember to this day. I don't know how much of my feedback went into his writing, but he just
Chapter 19 is all Brett Gilliland.
Yeah, probably not. But our thoughts that we gave as feedback to him were included. You know, Clayt Mask, he asked Clayt. I did the full review and provided the feedback. Clayt supplemented it. I think Clayt shared my involvement in giving the feedback, and so he included me in that book.
Oh, that's awesome. That's cool. I like that you shared that with us, Brett. I'm not joking.
Funny little story, but one I like. You know, I'm like, that's so cool. I'll tell you another more public accomplishment is the Great Place to Work recognition that we got. I mean, we worked really hard to intentionally build this great culture at Infusionsoft.
Yeah.
And the first year that I applied for the award, I was like, we're a shoo-in for this award. Great Place to Work, like we have created it. And it got, I don't know if denied is the right word. We did not get recognized. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. It was one of the biggest disappointments in my life because I knew fully that it wasn't that we didn't deserve it. It was that I hadn't accurately represented it. I didn't advocate strongly enough. I didn't represent it well enough. And so I was determined at that point. It's like, next year we will get on that list. I will do a better job of sharing what has happened here. And we did. Top 25 best small workplaces in America for the next couple of years. That was a great accomplishment. It wasn't all me that made that happen, but I was definitely part of that. And the actual recognition of itself was a reflection of my ability to put together that case and go champion it. And that felt great.
It's awesome. Yeah. Brett, it causes me to want to tell the story. I recall, so I joined the Infusionsoft culture as the 242nd employee back in 2012. I remember those numbers, But I remember the first time I came in the building, there was a connection that got me to come and interview and get to know the team and that kind of thing. But I remember walking in, and I'd been in the corporate culture, real big business, billion-dollar businesses. And when I walked in, you had been at it for a few years at least by the time I jumped in at that point. And I remember walking in and I was like, there's something here. And I know that I'm not the only one that says it exactly the way I'm telling you right now, because I've heard so many people say the same thing. At that period of time, I walked in, I'm like, you could tell people were getting stuff done. It wasn't like you just walked in there and it was like some playground, but it also was oddly fun. It felt like there was coolness and not crazy pretentious vibes of it was the right small business setting for me and for obviously many hundreds and maybe even thousands of employees to join it. And I credit that to you. And I recognize you're not the only one. I'm not saying that you were the only one working at this, but I credit a lot of that to you after I got to know what you had been up to within the company. And I have since been into a business where it felt like that. Yeah.
It was a special time for sure. And that's why I knew we deserved to be recognized nationally for what was created there. It's hard for me to know exactly what my involvement was. I mean, just truthfully, how can you say this is the part that you can trace back to what I did? There was something special that attracted me to that company before I ever stepped foot in it, right? So Clayt and Scott and Eric are the co-founders, and other team members early on that they hired. They had something special that was created. What I feel like I got to enjoy doing was to help them really codify that, name what it is, and then figure out how do we intentionally hire, lead, and fire to this is a phrase we use a lot. So I got to jump right in and help articulate the values for the company. They had values. It was clear. I felt it. You felt it when you came in. Mm-hmm. The only difference from when I came in and when you came in is that it hadn't been fully articulated. They hadn't put words to it. They hadn't gotten really good at saying, how do we find this in the hires that we are looking for? So I got to help them put the purpose and the values and the mission in place, and then build a hiring process and an onboarding process. I had a lot of fun with the onboarding process. We did a great job of mixing up our unique flavor of Kool-Aid or smoothie or whatever you want to call it, that magical blend of purpose and values that says this is our shared identity. And if you like the taste of it, you're going to fit well here, provided you know how to do the work. If you can apply for a job that you don't know how to do, but you're like, I love the culture, I want to be part of that, that's not a fit either, right? But if you love the taste of the culture and you're a high performer, that was just a perfect match. And we started to create such a talent tractor beam out of our purpose and our values that we didn't have to do a lot of work to go attract talent. Like it started coming in, and it was a really fun time. You and many others came as a result of that work.
Yeah, I agree. Just so many great people came and went and have done a lot of good things through that organization. So it's really cool.
Yeah.
But we could spend, I mean, probably days in nostalgia talking about what was, but I wanted to at least bring that up as, for me, a jumping off point. When we're talking about intentionality, I feel like you've done that at an organizational level. I feel like you've created that in such a pretty amazing way. So, Brett, what's on your mind around it? How do we connect those dots and bring people to the present day?
I guess one more nod to Jim Collins. He says, and I agree wholeheartedly, that the number one responsibility of every great leader is to set the vision. To me, that's all about intentionality. At a minimum, it's about clarity, clarity about a default future maybe, but the intentional way would be, what do we want to create? And how do we enroll the key people in the process of defining that future that they can't help but want to make it real, right? And I don't know if you remember one of the years we were pushing for a revenue goal. We had a shirt that had, it said, "I'm a believer." There's one right there. There's another one here that I can't, it says "believe." These are all my shirts from that time, just as remembering how we had created that. But when enough people believe that something is going to happen, it can't not happen. That was a mentality that we had. And so being intentional as a leader is getting really clear with the key people who need to help you create it on, why we're doing this, who we are, how we operate with one another, and the very specific thing that we're up to next. And that's where it starts for me, is that leaders need to get better at being intentional with setting vision.
Well, how do you do that then? Break down a little bit of your process. And I'm not trying to give away all your industry secrets.
Oh, no.
Tell us how that a CEO can do that.
I'll tell this to anybody who will listen. Sadly, most people who hear this won't do anything with it. Yeah, I mean, you kind of know that, right? And so I have a business because there are leaders who want the results that I can help them get, but they won't just go do what I'm talking about. They want somebody to, like a personal trainer, like I want somebody along the journey with me. And I love doing that. So it's great. My team and I have worked because people will not do what I'm about to share. So one of the major thing for business owners, especially in that 7-figure space who are trying to scale, but they can't quite spend enough time working on the business, is that they get stuck in their own creation. They built something that requires their effort to maintain. And until or unless they're willing to start carving out time outside of the day-to-day operations to start building something intentionally, they'll just keep doing the thing that they've already built. Yeah. So the very first thing you have to do is start carving out time on a regular basis to work on the business, not just in it. And then the follow-up comment to that is based on the question that follows. The question that follows is, well, what does it really mean to work on the business? Because we hear that all the time, right? Like, you got to work on the business, not in it. Like, okay, I'm working in it all the time. Now I'm going to start creating some space to work on the business. And then they get there and they're like, I guess I just answer more emails that are stacking up. Is that working on my business? Like they don't really know what it looks like because all they've done is exercise these operation muscles and just keep doing that. And pretty soon they just get sucked back into the day-to-day. So anyway, number one thing is start making time consistently to not do today's business, and to start building that tomorrow thing. And we can go as deep as you want on what does it actually look like to work on the business? What are some practical examples? But I'll let you guide wherever you want to guide.
Well, so those are the two. Are there more principles, or do we want to dive into them? Because, working on the business, there are some questions that come to my mind, but are you going to spell out other principles first? I'm all ears. I'm listening, Brett.
Yeah, I'm sort of just starting where I would start, right? I would say, make time regularly to work on the business. If your number one responsibility is set the vision, you have to do set the vision type of work. And that falls squarely in working on the business. The other two primary responsibilities that you have as a business owner is to build the team that can go achieve that vision and get the resources that we need. If you got a big vision, but you don't have the fuel to get there, that's not going to go very far, right? If you have a big vision, but you don't have the right people, you're not going to make it happen. So setting the vision, building the team, and getting the resources are really the three responsibilities that business owners should hang on to. And they should involve others. I'm not saying they do it alone, but they should get rid of all the other hats as quickly as they can. Quickly and responsibly, I would say, as their business can afford to bring in a new person to take on the revenue leadership, for example, right? If the business owner is the one that makes it rain, makes the revenue happen, that's part of getting the resources, right? That's an important part of getting the resources. And if that business owner is required to get the resources by doing the selling herself or himself, then that's what they need to do. But at some point, the business's output should justify bringing in somebody else to take on that responsibility. So you can level up your own level of contribution to the business.
So in that conundrum between I'm in the business, I need to work on the business, and you've just spelled out a few ways that they can start doing that. Most people get stuck in, it sounded like from what you were saying, most people get stuck in wanting to be able to do the things, like actually operate the business. So why is that such a hard chasm for people to cross? I mean, I'm raising my hand and saying that, but I want to understand from you, you got the data, you've been doing this for a long time. Why is that so hard for people to cross?
Well, let's just rewind. That might be old terminology, but let's remember back to when that business started and how it got to where it is, right? That founder or those partners, they were gritty, scrappy entrepreneurs, and they learned every step of the way, right? How do I do that? Okay, go do that. Figure it out. And they learn it. And then the next obstacle, and then they figure that out and they learn it. So all along the way, they're learning about product market fit and how to sell this thing and how do I consistently generate leads and how do we create the processes that deliver a consistent experience that matches what we sold, right? There's all this operational effort to get this thing going, and you know every single inch of it as the business owner who helped build it all along the way. And so it's really difficult to step out of that. Sometimes it's a fear. It's a fear that somebody else is going to get it wrong. It's going to fall apart. Yeah.
They will get it wrong.
Yeah. Probably. They're probably going to get it wrong. It depends on how well you select the right person and set them up for success, right? A lot of it comes back to us in a different way, though. We think it comes back to us like, I got to ensure that it gets done right. Really, it comes back to us, but in a different way. I got to ensure that the right person is set up for success with that. And we have a hard time with that. There's a lot of our self-identity is tied up in what we've built. Like, it feels good to know how to do these things. Mm-hmm. I know when I go do ABC, I'm going to get X, Y, Z results. And I show my value in life. Like, I know there's value between what I do and the outcome. And that feels good. And it feels a little scary to have somebody else take it. We also have another reason that we don't do it sooner is that we look at the money and we think, boy, that's going to cost me X to have somebody else do that when I could just do it. Now, you might be doing $20 an hour work. You might be stuck at $20 an hour work when your efforts could be on $50 an hour work or $100 an hour work. But you're like, I don't want to go spend $20 an hour for this thing that it just takes me a little bit of time to do. And so some of us DIYers, we're like allergic to paying somebody else to do something that we could do. And so then we don't hire that out. We keep it. So then we just get bogged down with all the work that we don't want to pay somebody else for. And that's another reason. So sometimes it's our identity that we don't want to let go of something that is tied to our worth. And sometimes it's like a monetary things, like I don't want to spend that money for something that I could do. And other times it's just that we don't know how to be the leader that is required to hire the right person and set them up for success. We're like, I can't figure that out, so I'll just keep doing this.
Yeah. So Brett, help us bring this section of our conversation back to intention. It makes a lot of sense to me, but I want to hear, how does all of these activities, focusing time to spend on the business, finding a way to get out of the operating all the little things and the chasm that it's kind of difficult to do because I do it better. I don't want to get it messed up. I don't want to lose traction. I value other people value me for the work that I put in. How does that come back to intentionality to you?
Well, the answer to whether or not you should even do anything about it starts with intention. What do you want to build for your life? If you are, I mean, work is work, right? Everybody, there are days where you don't feel like doing it. Other days it could be totally fulfilling, but it's still work. But if you find that you can unlock the magic of purpose for your business, which we haven't really talked about in depth yet, but part of setting the vision is getting clear on that purpose. If you can have a purpose-driven business that you and your team member, like, they're excited about being part of this because it's more than just the transactional exchanging value for a dollar kind of thing, that can be really motivating. If you know that you want to create something bigger, then you're going to do the work to go create it. But if you know, you're like, actually, I don't want to do the work that I think it would take. Let's say you sort of tapped out in the early 7-figure range. You're 1.2, 2.1, it doesn't matter. Somewhere in that range of revenue. And you're like, I just can't see me wanting to put the effort in to take it to the next level. I'm perfectly fine here. It's profitable. I can just keep doing this until I'm done doing this. If you know that's the case, then don't figure out how to work on the business more. Just keep doing the thing. But if you know that there's a next level of time freedom or financial freedom or impact that you want to have in the world, if you know there's something more, that's where the intention comes in my mind. It's like, you got to get clear about your personal intention, and then you got to get clear about how the business serves that. And if right now the business is just something that's going separate from your personal intention, that's a disconnect. That's something in your life that needs to be aligned better.
Yeah. So it's either a circumstance where you have decided, you've sat down and said, I want to do this thing. I want to grow it. I want to, whatever that bigger, grander vision is that you have for it. That's one. Or maybe some external pressure says you have to grow this thing. I mean, if you're doing the work and it's like that, we're not going to remain profitable if I keep doing it the way that I've done it. So there's external, internal, but that can maybe be the catalyst to sit down and start doing the intentional work of, all right, I got to do this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And what are we going to create? So just last night, I got an email from a member who was trying to decide what he wanted for his business for this year. So he wrote a note and said, hey, I've been thinking about it. And I kind of had two choices. I could either pull back this year a little bit. And if I did pull back, I would just end my relationship with Elite or take a pause or whatever, right? If I'm not going to grow and I know I'm going to intentionally not do the thing this year, then I'm just going to disconnect from some things and pull back a little. But if I intend to grow this year, I'm going to be all in and stay with Elite. And so that was the choice he was making. And he decided that he was going to go for it, right? He's like, I'm all in to grow to this next revenue point, and I want you guys to help me do it. And so I'm staying. And so that's great. Awesome that we have another customer. But I actually don't care if he chose the other way or he chose the way to stay. I just care that they choose, right?
Yeah.
Like we need, and I know you're a big advocate of this. Let's make choice. Let's make a clear choice. And then let's align our lives to match the choices we make. A lot of us like to put out intentions, aspirations, New Year's resolution. Like, we put out this stuff like, here's what I would like to do. And then we do nothing to align our behavior to it or our resources to it. That's sad. And sadly, that's the majority of the population, in my experience, falls into that bucket of, like, I see that there's something better, and there's part of me that wants something better, but I'm not really willing to do the things that would lead to that better place. And that's okay. But it's sad. To me,
Yeah.
it's sad because I know how much potential there is out there. There's so much unrealized potential individually and organizationally. And, that's why we chose to call our purpose at Elite Entrepreneurs is to realize potential, because we see that everywhere. Like, let's help you realize more potential in your business and in your life. And anyway, I get a little excited.
I think that a lot of intentions and goals that are set in this way are really more wishes than anything. And some wishes can come true. Quite honestly, there could be a couple things, a couple people you meet that just kind of their opportunity happens. Now, I'm not saying that's without effort, but it could become an easier, well, okay, we're just going to do this thing real fast and it work out. But for the most of us, to have an intention that's bigger than whatever we already have, it requires a different amount of buy-in, commitment, and you said alignment. Because once you actually commit to that thing that's out there, the vision you've set, and you say, I'm going to make this thing happen, that's different than I would like this thing to happen, right?
It's way different. Yeah. And it's about aligning our behaviors or our resources, our time to that intention. Whether you're talking to a guest who's like super into personal effectiveness, right? Intentional for an individual, or you're talking to somebody like me who's spent a long time helping organizations be more intentional, the principles are the same. You will see exact same thing. So for example, I'll tell you organizationally what I teach business owners who are trying to do more work on the business and align their business to the intention. Here's what I teach them to do. Track where you're spending your time. So align more of your time towards the thing that you say you want. Spend time or be around, attract the people who are trying to go there with you or who are doing something similar. And the other thing is watch where your dollars go. You know, if I say in my personal life, oh, you know, I want to have, I hit my 50s in the last couple of years, and there's this, you know, there's a whole world of fitness out there for, you know, if you want to have a 6-pack as a 50-year-old or, you know, like successful business person, but you've been neglecting your body. Like there's a whole world of trying to sell stuff to people like me or at this age, like I need to be fit. Well, if I say, yeah, I want to do that, but I don't carve out any time to do the work required to get it, that's less likely to happen. If I say, oh, I want to do that, but I still maintain friends or I spend my time with people who are, you know, I don't know, going to sporting events and watching other people be active, but, you know, or maybe they're sitting on the couch, they're hosting parties and we're just sitting around. That's different than if I go sign up for a cycling club or a running club or a, you know, a gym membership with my good friends where we are all there together. There's principles here that apply whether you're talking about personal intention or organizational intention. And the funniest one for an organization is when we say things like, oh yeah, this year our intention is to get really good at marketing. Let's say that's one that I've said multiple times, really good at marketing, but all the dollars get spent on everything else. Like they don't get spent on marketing. And so our money doesn't match what we say is our intention. So how we spend time, money, and who we hang out with or who we bring to be with us in this cause, those three things are important indicators of whether or not your life is actually aligned with what you say you want.
Yeah. I find that there's an underrated, and now in this world we live in, I think that everybody's tracking everything now. I mean, like rings and watches and headbands and I don't know, bed sheets. Like it tracks everything nowadays. Right. And I think that there's some usefulness in it, but I think it's still an underrated skill set to actually track everything you're doing, given those parameters. You said track your time and see where you're spending your time. So in the business or in your life or whatever it is, like everywhere, looking at actual hours, I did this, I do this, and found that I was spending less time with one of my children. And I was like, oh, that's a personal thing, not a business thing. But when you track your time, it finally allows you to say, oh, well, if I say this intention or this vision is what I'm after, then how are the daily, weekly, monthly things that I'm doing actually aligning with that? So I think that, and in tracking where your money's going, like you said, if you do those things, and that might be a way you can start spending time on the business, is look it over with your accountant. Where's all the dollars going for this, all these projects we got going? Or, you know, look over your time and which teams am I spending the most time with in the business or personally. And so I think that's an underrated work. And it is work, let me tell you, to actually like
it's tedious and nobody wants to do it.
Dude, yeah. I challenge anybody listening, track every minute of the next 7 days. Every minute. Every single minute of the next 7 days and put it into, I don't know, I have my categories, put it in the categories that are significant to you, 12, 15, 20 categories, and see where you spend your time. And then come talk to us. Anyways, I think that's a great habit to start So that's a good way to get into working on the business. Thank you, Brett.
Yeah. And tracking your time, you know, let's talk about the financial piece for a second. If you ever work with a financial planner and you want to get control of your spending, they're going to have you track where every penny is spent, right? That's what they're going to do in your personal life. It's like, okay, stick of gum, however much that is. You write it down. You track every cent that you spend. And then you look at the whole and you go, oh, I didn't realize I was spending so much on this category. I said that this was important to me, but this is getting less of the resource. You start to see patterns. Tracking your time does the same thing. And I love your challenge. I want to crank it up a little. I don't want to one up you, but I want to crank it up a little bit, because everybody will say, well, this week was different. If I did it for 7 days, this week is different. I actually think you have to track it for 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Because then it sort of normalizes for, well, this week was different, that week was different. So if you're really serious about it, track it for 3 or 4 weeks. And Bryan got intense with track every single minute. Most of us aren't going to write down every minute how we spent the time. We would say, I've been tracking my time every minute. But I think if you track it in 30-minute increments, just loosely, it doesn't have to be very precise. I'm trying to make it more practical, right? So
I love it. Right?
Every 30 minutes, or let's say you're tied up for 2 hours, we'll look back over those 2 hours and assign something to each 30 minutes for 3 or 4 weeks. And then you'll see enough trend, enough pattern for some insights.
Yeah. And maybe, Brett, I'll get a sponsor for this video. I use a tracking mechanism where I can just hit go and it's tracking me. And then when I stop that activity, I hit stop and then I can go to the next activity. Yeah, so that's why I'm saying by minute. You can do it Brett's way. Anyway, track your time. And I'm with you. The 7-day sprint, easy to track. It's hard, but you can do it. If you do it for multiple weeks, it's harder. The level up from there, Brett, send it to someone who actually cares about it and then see how well you do. Because then you're going to do some different things.
Yes. Love that. Yeah. Good.
Speaking of intentionality, what is your intention for listening to this episode? Are you simply passing the time, or are you here because you truly want to improve something in your life? The way we act is a direct reflection on what matters to us. So right now, while you're here, take a quick moment and rate this episode or leave a quick comment. Pulling your thoughts into words is powerful, and it turns passive listening into action. When you act on your intention, that's where change happens. Your rating, your comment, your share, they're not just clicks. They're a signal that what we're building together matters, that conversations like this deserve to grow. Each action helps this message reach more people who are looking to live intentionally. And no matter if you're listening to this show on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or any other podcasting platform out there, if you scroll to the bottom of the page or you go to our show page, you can easily rate and comment. We pull your comments and actually put them into our show. And it's another way that you can tell the algorithm that intentionality really matters. It takes just a few seconds, and it creates a bigger ripple effect than you might realize. I created this show because I wanted to help people find their way, find the intentional way. Cool. So we've got some ways to spend time on the business as a starter. What's the next phase, Brett? I'm not saying that we're done there, but I don't know if there's something else we need to go to or continue here. You let me know.
Yeah. Let's spend some more time on what it looks like to actually work on the business.
Yeah.
So one thing is this taking inventory work that we just talked about. First, setting intention. So I would assemble the right group of people in your business. If you haven't done this before, get really clear about why this business matters. What's the cause? What's the impact? Not, we make the world better through exceptional service. I don't want to hear the through thing. I just want to focus all about the why behind it. So I mentioned ours at Elite Entrepreneurs is to realize potential. That's the drive behind everything we do, is to realize potential. So that's our fire that we carry about. We say, this is the flame of our purpose, and it lights the way, and we're excited. And we love for that fire to never go out. So that's our purpose. If you haven't done that work, that's very valuable on the business type of work. Then setting clear core values for your team or with your team. I would get anybody that sort of bleeds the color of your company colors. Like, they're the poster child for somebody who's a great fit for my team, my business. Great. We want that person involved in putting words to what makes us. So any of that core values identification or articulation work would be good, working on the business stuff. And then a clear what we're trying to accomplish by when, a clear what by when mission. So by the end of 2027, we're going to accomplish this thing, or we're going to arrive at this destination. So if you get a purpose, values, and mission in place, that is setting the vision. All of that is good work on the business. And then some of these other things we talked about where I think you need to get clear about your strategy. So there's a mission, there's an objective. Now, how are we going to go get that? And that's where you can start looking at the inventory of your time and your resources and the people you're connecting to the business. Does it align with the strategy that goes with that mission we talked about? So purpose, values, mission, strategy work, and then aligning resources to that. So all of that's like high level working on the business stuff.
Yeah. I want to at least interject for a minute here. There are these grand, huge corporations that talk about, purpose, mission, and values. And it seems like no one in the company could ever recite them for you. So I just want to make sure listeners know that what Brett's talking about is phenomenal. It actually works, but it has to be different than, oh, the leadership team came up with 5 values and here they are, memorize them, as opposed to this is actually what they are. This is what people say. And they use these words in communication. That was one of the things I thought was fascinating, is that the values at Infusionsoft at that time, which I directly correlate with the work that you did in that business. And I recognize I'm not trying to go back to nostalgia land here, but either way, we actually spoke about those values. You'd hear people talking about them all the time because that's actually what they were, not because that's what headquarters wanted the rest of us to do. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I want to make sure everybody's hearing that.
It definitely is. And this is an important distinction on it, especially on a podcast like this, where you're promoting intentionality, right? And I love intentionality, which is why we're even talking. But there is a difference. When you do the core values work, we're not getting intentional like creation. We're getting intentional like clearly articulating what is. There's a different type of intentionality probably than most people think of. So we're not creating a new set of values. We're putting words to what are our values. This is our predominant way of being. And then it's not just a poster or a screensaver or, whatever other ways people share those documents in large companies. It is our way of being. This is how we do what we do all the time with anyone. So the nice thing about it is, because we're articulating what is, this is not an aspirational exercise. It's an articulation. Once we get it nailed down, it already feels completely natural to me and to you. You loved your time at Infusionsoft because you felt completely at home there. It was being at home. It was comfortable to you. So you could go home and still be yourself, and you could be at work and be yourself, whether it's a client or a partner or a team member. You didn't have to put on, okay, wait a minute, this is my talking with Brett face, and this is now I'm talking to my wife face, and there are differences between me and your wife, just to be clear. But my point is, around the values, like, you could just be you, and that's what's beautiful about it. So when you do this work, you're not trying to name something that we want to become someday with the values. That's not it. We're going to name a destination-oriented mission that we want to accomplish together, but we're going to name how we operate with one another all the time. And that's what becomes magical about it, is when it's so consistent that team member after team member would face similar situations and take similar action. And every customer that interacted with somebody at Infusionsoft just knew what they were going to get, right? They would speak about it. Like, where are you finding all these people? How in the world? They're all amazing, right? Like, we just named who we are. We just said, this is who we are, so strongly that the people who were that became attracted to it. So you're right. We memorized it, Bryan, and we talked about it all the time. We genuinely lived these values intentionally all the time. And that's what made it so unique.
Yeah. And even where there was a miss, it wasn't a miss because it wasn't part of your DNA. It was a miss because, you have off moments. People aren't perfect, right?
Yeah.
But it's not like you were trying to force yourself into this, I always do this one thing. Sometimes, no, you did that the grand majority of the time. And then, there's occasions where we make mistakes.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. People are still people. None of us are perfect. So we say, here's the standard of behavior. And if your pattern of behavior over time reflects that standard, it feels normal, natural, comfortable, then yeah, a moment of, missing on the behavior slightly or greatly can be overcome. People get stressed and they act differently under stress. But yeah,
Yeah.
the majority of the time it was like behavior match.
Yeah. Okay, well, Brett, take us to the next step. What's next? What else do we do in this process to become intentional as organizations to hit our vision, go after our purpose, make it happen?
Yeah, so I think we have time for one more conversation, unless you cut it short. But I think equally as important as naming our intention is then setting up rhythms and processes for checking in on that intention, specifically because the day-to-day business will pull us back, right? It'll pull us into a day-to-day operational view. And if we have strategic, longer-term, big picture thinking that's worthy of our time and attention, and we let the day-to-day stuff pull us back in, then even if we had the intention, we've lost sight of it. We're not actually spending the time again. So I think getting clear on purpose, values, mission strategies, aligning resources, all of that's amazing, but it's not a one and done thing. You have to keep going back to it. Just like an individual who sets an intention has to have daily rhythms to keep on that, right? Daily, weekly, monthly types of rhythms. There are organizational rhythms. There are equivalents that have to be put in place to ensure that we're taking targeted, coordinated action around the short-term, day-to-day stuff that will be screaming for our attention, and the longer-term strategic progress stuff that we have to make time for. So I would want to marry intention with discipline and rhythm every time. That's the only way that it happens.
Yeah. I think that's really sound advice, Brett, because so many times maybe we'll even go through the effort of really getting clear about our vision, really getting clear about what we're going to do and our purpose and even the values. We get clear about some of those things. We put it down. Maybe we put it on a poster, we put it somewhere, and then we look at it like twice a year. And then supposedly we're going to arrive at this destination where we've actually met our objectives.
Well, yeah, because we have a cool vision board with like magazine clippings and stuff.
It's beautiful, right? But if you don't pay attention, this is why being able to check in with what you're doing, even on a daily, even on a weekly and monthly. So there's personal ways that I can see why listeners would do that, or if they're not, I recommend that they do. But how does an organization then check in with these things consistently enough where it's actually moving the needle?
Yeah, earlier I said that there are a lot of parallels between personal effectiveness and organizational effectiveness. So let's draw out this one around rhythm. So on a personal basis, well, there's an assumption here, a belief, I guess, that I have. Hopefully others listening can see this. My belief is that human beings are forgetful, that they wander, that they drift, that they get off course, right? That even the best intentions, like here's what I want to do, here's what I want to be, there's a lot of, every time my head hits the pillow, there's like a reset button. The next day I'm like, okay, I'm going to go again. I don't know what, like there's a built-in forgetfulness thing that happens with people, and we drift, we wander, we get off track. And so there are personal rhythms to keep us focused. Some people have their miracle morning, right? Or their magical morning, or their whatever. There are routines. I have mine. You and I have both done some I am kind of work. I have 14 I am statements that I say every single day without fail for years. This keeps me focused on who I am creating of me. So my I am statements, I read scripture every day. I pray every day. I write in a journal every day. Those are the 4 things that I do every day without fail that help me somewhat stay on track, right? Even with those things, we wander, we get off track. So those are my things. In a business, if I want to keep track of the longer picture, I have to take time out of my routine with the right people to stay focused on that intention. So targeted, coordinated action is what we want. We don't want a bunch of people doing their best, but going in different directions. We want everybody aligned to here's what matters to us in the short term, and here's what matters to us in the long term. And so a weekly rhythm, daily and weekly rhythms are usually more operationally focused, right?
Okay.
Here are the key numbers. Here's what's going on with leads and sales and member success or customer success or whatever. So there are those KPI things that keep the business in a healthy spot. We should be looking at those. Some of those things, there's a daily stand-up kind of routine that you can do with your team. Certainly a weekly dashboard or KPI review would be important. That daily, weekly rhythm is more operational in nature, not usually the longer term focus on those. But monthly, quarterly, annually, I want to have a really good planning and follow through cadence on our longer term objectives. So annual planning gets neglected sometimes in smaller businesses. They're like, well, I don't have time to talk about next year because I'm focused on all this right now. Yeah, I just do more. Let's just make the numbers higher next year. That's what we do. So yeah, annual planning, quarterly planning, a monthly check-in against those quarterly plans, and then the weekly dashboard or KPI meeting can include a view into those longer term projects. I find that to be helpful, but you have to set up a meeting cadence if you actually want to spend enough time working on the business.
Brett, what I love is that you have, with intention, created a system that grows companies in a way that makes them fun to grow. I mean, maybe there's a brute force way to grow a business, but I don't think that at the end of that, people are happy. But the way I've seen you help people grow businesses occurs to me as very enjoyable. You get to acknowledge your strengths and hit some goals, and you're not going to hit everything. You're not going to be perfect, but at the same token, it's a system that if followed can actually get you there versus, sporadic thoughts and ideas that come and go. So I love that there's so much intentionality that you've put into your business. It's one of the reasons why I just love being involved in what you do, because I think it's cool. I think it's cool that you've systematized growth.
It's totally fun. I literally just got off a call with one of our members before our interview here. And over the last 2 years, she went from being completely involved in delivering the patient care in her business. It's a physical therapist type of business. She was in the delivery of patient care to drive revenue, right? To bring in the needed fuel. But over the last 18 months, 2 years, she's systematically spent more and more time working on the business. She got other people in there to do the patient care. And now she's in the office a couple times a week. She's got some leaders in place. She got all the systems set up. And what we teach isn't for the purpose of disconnecting from your business. That's not the driver behind it, but to create what you want the business to be for your life. For her life, she's in a great place right now. She's like, yeah, 2 years ago, I was so tied to making the money happen that I couldn't spend time thinking about how to improve my business. Now she's thinking about what's the next level of development to get more of the very hard to find therapists that I need. They have this niche therapy that they provide, and there's not that many people who provide it. So her biggest challenge is getting more people to be able to add capacity to their system. And she gets to think about that and problem solve about that. Whereas 2 years ago, she would just be in the clinic seeing patients trying to keep the lights on. So it takes time, I guess is what I'm saying, but it's totally possible. And that was just coincidentally, I just had that conversation right before this interview. Yeah.
Well, Brett, that's a wonderful way to round out our conversation. It's been a pleasure having you here, because for those that are listening, there's so much you can take from this to apply to your business, your personal life, no matter where you are in your business, where you are in your life. There's ways that you can become intentional, create a system, follow it, and check in with it, and really achieve some amazing things that you envisioned. This isn't Brett's vision. This isn't Bryan's vision. This is yours. And you get to take that and run with it. So thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge and just being here with us.
Yeah, super fun. Thanks, Bryan, for having me.
And we'll make sure everybody can find you on your website and get in contact with you. We'll have that all in the show notes. So guys, check in there. We're glad to have everybody here with us. And thanks again, Brett, for being here. Thank you for joining us on The Intentional Way. I'm Bryan Hatch, and it's been a true privilege to share this time with you. If today's episode has inspired you in any way, shape, or form, please subscribe, follow, and download our episodes. Your support not only helps us grow, it also enables us to bring more insightful conversations and exceptional guests right to you. Living intentionally begins with a single step, yours. So let's make the most of it. Until next time, seek intention by being completely present.